Hey y'all, welcome back to another video. It's your girl Sam, and today we got some press-ons we finna do. I'm gonna show y'all everything on how to make your press-ons and also how to apply the press-ons for maximum wear, because we love good press-ons. And we are using Macart's products. So let's get down to business. I'm going to show you how to apply Polygel on the press-ons for a more sturdy build if you're interested in doing that. Also, all the prep that is needed before applying the press-on. I'm going to show you how you can either do it for yourself or go ahead and sell it for someone. I do also have a video about selling press-ons, so after watching this you could go ahead and go to that and you will be set for the press-on business. But let's go for the basics. Everything used I will have listed down below in the details. All the stuff you get off their website or Amazon, but I'll have both down below for y'all. So that being said, let's get right into it. Let me see your hands. Wave them at them bitches hating on you with their friends. Girl, you got it. First things first, put the press-ons on the press-on stand. If you have one, if you don't have one, you need one. It will make it 5 times easier. Literally 5 times, because you get it. Anyway, we start with shaping always. It just helps make the process easier by the end, so it's not all bulky and gunky. And yeah, we need that shape crisp at all times. You need to etch the top layer of your press on. It is a mandatory step. If not, the gel will separate and possibly peel off like a sticker. You do not need much pressure at all. You can honestly do this with a file, but I like to use my drill or my e-file for everything. As you can see, I even shape with my e-file. After, you could go ahead with your regular file and shape them up just to make the edges or the ends of the press-on crisp. Here I'm just applying some alcohol just to clean the nail off from all that dust. So I'm using Soft Whisper gel polish and I'm applying a layer of that. Then I go in with apricot blush as the second layer because it just needed a little bit more darker pink. However, this first color is everything. Is so pretty and it has like a little bit of shimmer in it. Absolutely gorgeous. You can do as many layers as you please. Just keep in mind that you might need to shape at the end because the more layers equals the more bulky. I was going to do an ombre with the airbrush, however I could not find my airbrush charger, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it with the polygel. So I'm using Macart's polygel in white. You could use the same techniques that I'm using with acrylic. I'm just using polygel. So what I do is I always apply a very thin amount. You don't need much. You don't. What you need to focus on is a smooth base, a smooth application to where you barely need to file after you're done. I get all the sides of my press on. As you can see, you need to make sure you're looking at it from different angles because you don't want, especially if you're selling them, you don't want to miss the ends or the edges of the press on because it just looks sloppy. For the ombre, you do want to swipe up to create that ombre look, just like you would with acrylic. Polygel is actually, I feel like, easier because you can keep messing with it and it still won't dry until you cure it. Like I said, you do need to check all of the edges of the press on. Make sure you're not getting anything underneath because that will be harder to clean up once it's dry. You can see me wipe away a part of that polygel that was sitting underneath there because sometimes it does get underneath there. Go ahead and flash cure for 15 seconds. Look how thin it is. I'm telling you, you don't need much. The more that you put will be the more of a headache to file at the end. Now I'm going ahead and using this pink polygel, which is how you apply the polygel to the base of the press-on. You need to make sure that it is very thin at the base where the cuticle will hit this press-on. Why would you want a thick crevices? No, we need to make sure it's nice and smooth so it could be flush to the cuticle when you are gluing it. You can also file it if you see a little ridge that builds up, because I mean it's going to take practice, especially if you're not 100% smooth with your application. You just treat this like a regular ombre. You go ahead and use the base of your brush to drag that pink down. And you see I am fixing the edges. I am making sure everything is nice and smooth at the edge. This is without clear on top. I feel like if you need to put the clear on top, you can. I don't, because I barely file. I lightly file with my hand file. I don't even e-file it because it's so smooth. I don't need to. But if you feel like you need to add a little clear, go ahead and add a little clear. Just keep it nice and thin. I would like to mention that with acrylic, you need to be careful because the acrylic actually shrinks the press on. And this is because the thin material of the press on, it's less flexible when the acrylic is on top of it. When the acrylic dries, it actually contracts and shrinks the press on. It just makes it tighter for you or your customer, whoever is wearing the nail. You would need to go up one size at least, or file right underneath where you are gluing the press on the nail. Acrylic is just kind of tricky when it comes to press ons. Over the years, I did notice that it does shrink, and sometimes I don't feel it. In some nails, it does, especially my pinkies or my thumbs. But if it's for a customer, I definitely go up one size. I do rather using Polygel over acrylic because it does shrink, but not as much as the acrylic. So you don't even need to go up a size. So if you need to, say this happens to you or to a client, you could actually tell them to file underneath the base of the press on where it will need to be glued down to the natural nail. You could file right underneath that and it will give more space. And y'all, I thought I recorded me filing on top of my press on. Of course, I did not. But I did just take my hand file and gently file all around just to make sure everything is smooth. Underneath, I went in a little bit, and definitely on the base of the nail, because I don't like that ridge when it hits the cuticle. I need everything flush and thin and pretty. Just so we're all on the same page, this right here is the base, this right here is the middle, and this right here is the free edge or the tip. When I say file underneath the base, this is where I'm talking about right here. If you need to have that extra room, if it does shrink a little bit. Onto the designs, we are taking this rhinestone glue. It is my holy grail. I use this for all my 3D lines, charms. I always use this rhinestone glue. It's just thicker, a great consistency. So what I do is I take the rhinestone glue and mix it with some white gel polish so it could still be thick for the lines, but also be white so I don't have to paint on top of the clear lines. But the trick to do this design is create a little ball at the tip of your brush and gently apply pressure. You don't need a lot of pressure. So the more that you go down to the end of your line, you want to release the pressure of the brush on the nail. That should make sense. It makes sense to me. But yeah, I decided to do this because it's cute, and why not? I love the 3D lines because I always wear charms. So the 3D lines just adds a little pop instead of the charm. I was having a hard time because I love this base matte. I loved it glossy. I ended up keeping them glossy, but the matte came through. Okay, from here you could go ahead and do your final touches if you need any extra filing or whatever the case may be, and put them in your packaging. But for the sake of the video, I am going to actually apply them on myself. First things first, we are going to start with our prep, which is the most important part, especially the press-ons. If you want them lasting a very long time, I push back my cuticles and I make sure to get in there. I have very, very sensitive cuticles, so I will not cut my cuticles in this video. I tend to only do it whenever it's absolutely needed. And at this point, yeah, I did have cuticles, but they are fine. Like, I don't feel like I needed to cut them. Skin type does matter when it comes to using cuticle bits, because if you have oily, or not even oily, but very sensitive nail beds or cuticle area, or very, very dry cuticle area, you might want to skip this step. But it's all up to you and your client, or whoever you're putting this on or doing this on. So I'm taking this barrel bit and only going around my cuticle, or on my cuticles around the nail plate, not touching the nail plate, because if you do touch your nail plate, it will leave dents, and we do not like dents, rings of fire. This does take a little bit of practice. I am still getting accustomed to it. So now I'm taking this flame bit, and it's a mini flame bit, and it just gets all the extra skin that's just laying on your nail. I go underneath the skin fold on the cuticle, actually, to make sure I'm getting just everything that I could possibly get. Now I'm taking my sanding band, and by the way, this is pretty much all on 4,000 RPMs. I don't go higher than that. The two cuticle ones, I typically go at 6,000 to 8,000, but I like to keep it on about 6. But here I am just going in one little motion. It does look like I'm going back and forth on the nail, but it is really just one motion. You never want to saw back and forth on your nail plate, left to right type of thing. That's like a constant motion of heat and thinning your nail blade. So you do want to just use a one direction pass, which, let's just say you're going to the right, lift up, and then repeat. Never saw left to right. For the ones who don't have an e-file, you can use a hand file. That is perfectly fine. Just keep that same motion using a 100, 180 file, and make sure you get the edges of your nails, the sides, because it does matter. So now everything is prepped and filed. I am taking my dehydrator and my primer and applying it on my nail plates. This just is a little extra step that I like to do. But you don't have to do it. It's just something that I do. I feel like it does actually make it stick better. Maybe it's just in my head, but that's just me. Now I am applying the glue on my nail. You do not need a lot of glue. This is just an example of, I put too much glue and it is pouring out of the base of the press on. That is a no-no. You know, it does happen sometimes. You just wipe it with your other fingers and make sure to clean it off before you press down again, because you can get glue on top of your press on. How I like to apply it is, I like to take the press on base and drag the glue down from the cuticle, and then plop the press on down from the base down to the free edge. How I like to explain it is just like putting gel X on. You don't just put the tip on the nail. You have to start from the base of your press on and then put the pressure down to the free edge. This is just another little hack that I learned, and to get all the air bubbles out, because you do create air bubbles sometimes. So you could take your nails and place it on the edge of a table or wherever that has like a edge, and apply pressure all around from side to side, up and down, and that will actually get rid of the air bubbles. You can also just do that holding it, but pushing it on a table top could help get rid of all the air bubbles, and of course help with maximum wear. I am loving these nails. They came out so cute, girly, glossy, just everything above. Now this is what I like to do after I put them on, is see how the edges look, because I don't like ragged edges. So then I will take my file and go underneath very, very softly. You do not need a lot of pressure. Press-ons in general, they are just very sensitive when it comes to filing, because they're such a lightweight material. So you really don't need much. Just file, pause, check, and file again. That's all we need. Anything, shaping or just clean up the edges. That is it for today. I hope this helps you make some press-ons for you, your business, your family, your friends, whoever. I hope this helps you also applying the press-ons. But yes, that is it. I appreciate y'all for watching. Bye, y'all.